Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast. I wanted to talk to you about a big shift that just happened, at least the data from 2019, the 5 schools that are reporting data from 2019, in that expect now that the number of residency and fellowship graduates that are employed at graduation. Now, I don't know what's going to happen after graduation, but these surveys look to have been taken at graduation, or certainly close out from it, is greater than the number in community, which is historic. It's never happened that way. So first, where can you find these? So I've read all 140, I think, that were available at memorizingpharm.com/match rates, all one word. And what I did was I put a link to the updates, so you can see the last update 2019. These 5 schools are the most current with their information. These 40 schools from 2018 are a little bit less current, and maybe they do their survey 3 months out, 6 months out, or 9 months out. I've seen all 3 of those. And then these schools have the last update in 2017, 2016, one in 2015, and then Marshall had data, but it didn't have a year anywhere on the page, so I had no idea what year it was from. These schools have no graduates yet. They're still going through first. And then these schools have no non-residency employment data, which you're going to see why, but it's really important to know the non-residency employment data to answer the question, should I do a residency? But about half, a little less than half of all the pharmacy schools don't report non-residency data as an outcome in that way. I think you can go to the provost's office or whatever it is and say, hey, I'd like to know what the graduation data is, but couldn't find it, and I'm pretty good at finding these things. So let's go to Rutgers first, and then Ohio State, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Washington. So we see we have from East Coast to West Coast, we have a very large swath of indicators, but unfortunately it's only 5 schools. But let's start here with Rutgers. This is the employment survey response. So at time of graduation, 68% of the graduating class who responded has secured employment. So let's look at the breakdown. And it's really nice that these are right next to each other. So if you look here at fellowship and industry at 13%, and then residency at 16%, and I believe Rutgers is the one that has that really great industry fellowship. So you have 29% in residency plus fellowship, but only 17% here in community, and then not secured employment 31%. So what you're seeing is that the fellowship plus the residency at 29% exceeds community at 17%, and that's historic. That doesn't happen, or hasn't happened. So I'll talk about my recommendations at the end, but let's go see some other programs and see where they're going. One caveat I did want to make is that 6% of the students went into hospital with no residency. 7% went into industry with no residency. So it can happen. Just wanted to kind of point that out. Okay, so let's go on to Ohio State. So again, let's look at combining fellowship and residency, and every school reports it different. Most of these schools have really great graphics and stuff, and there's some others that are less so. But 39% residency or residency plus. I know they've got that great administrative combo residency PGY1, PGY2 master's program there, and fellowship at 5%. So we're talking about 44% of the class is at residency and fellowship, and you have to look down here, 88% community. So 0.88 times the 25% would get you about 22% are in community. So almost double, actually a little more than double, are in residency and fellowship than are in community positions. Okay? And then 28% are still looking. They had a really kind of neat thing up here where, let me see. No, I don't want pass rates. Yeah. So how did they pay for school? 84% of students have loans at graduation, but at Ohio State, looking at this, I don't know if this means you don't have loans at graduation, but only 31% with loans is a very low number. So this scholarship must be extremely good. And I know they're an in-state school, and their tuition is, if I remember right, around 22, which is one of the lowest in the country. So a real, I don't want to call it a bargain, but when you've got a top school for $22,000 a year, that's really, really good. And then kind of breaks down where these residencies are. So, and this is consistent with what's going on nationally, that most will go into a PGY1, a few in AmCare, a few in community, and so forth. Okay. And then something that I know a lot of people ask are, what are the average number of months I have to look for employment? And they're saying 2.2. And that means that if the survey was done in May, they were really only starting in March. And that means that are the people that didn't get residency in March when they found out about the match, is that when they're starting their search? So that lets me know already I should probably be starting my search a bit early. The average number of employers interviewed with, 2.3. That number seems kind of low. I would imagine that people would try to go for different employers, but that's just the data. And then the average number of job offers, 0.8. So, and average starting salary, 101,768. And of course, this excludes the residency salaries. And I'll show you some, another college actually breaks those down. But at 101,768, so still over the 100,000 mark. Next is Oklahoma, and we'll go past those rates, and we'll come down to the jobs. So here we have, this was really different in that we saw the class of 2016 at 19%, and then down to 13, 13, and 10 in terms of the percentages that want to do residency, and community going down from 57 down to 29%. So still, if you add 10 fellowship and residency, and I don't see any fellowships here, 10% for the residency, and then 29% for community. I didn't add independent to any of the others, so we'll just, this is the reverse, where you've got community at 3 times the residency, which is what we normally would see, and then have not yet finalized plans, 48%. So 52% know what they're doing, 48% don't, and that survey is still open for the class of 2019, so I don't know. I looked up here, and it says it was revised in July 3rd, so 3 weeks ago. This sounds like this data is current. Okay, this one doesn't have the fancy graphics, but it actually has one of the best data sets in terms of information. So the first thing is, what are the average salaries for graduates? And we're seeing 107,000, so a little bit higher than what Ohio State was reporting. And again, salaries tend to be regional. And then how many are getting jobs or have jobs right now? So at graduation, 70% accepted a position from Arkansas, and then 30 have not. And so 27% haven't. And then we want to look at the number of residencies versus community. And you have to look down here. So 28 are completing residency. And so that's not a percentage, it's a whole number. And then we have 17 chain, 6 mass market. So I would add those two together as the kind of number. So 23 graduates in chains and mass market versus 28 in residency fellowship. So again, community is less than the residencies. And then Washington State shows similar data where you've got, they put something good in here. I thought that it doesn't include 11% with offers in negotiation with an employer. So getting a job is a fluid thing. It's not something that's just like, okay, well, everybody's going to have their job by graduation day. It's, you go back and forth and kind of figure out, like, do I want to live here? Do I want to live there? So it's saying that you can add this 11% to the 57%, but they're trying to be transparent. So you would say 68% are hopefully knowing what they're doing, but it's probably some number between 57 and 68. But again, we're seeing the same thing, 24 residency and 18 out of state. So you're looking at 38.42 for residency, and then 27 for chain, which again, it's completely different than what we've seen before, where it was chain was the number one hiring. And you can see even just going back, back to 2015, where 41 of the students had gone to chain and then 13 to residency. So this is a big shift. And I think there was another thing that I really wanted to see. So knowing the match rate is really important as well. And I talked about the percentage of students that are going to get residency. So now I want to talk about the match rate. And I'll come back to this because I want to start and show you that there is actually no match rate here. Okay, so they're not actually reporting a match rate. They're just saying 16% of our class got there, but it didn't say this many tried and this many got it. Ohio State is the same. I don't think that they reported the percentage that tried and the percentage that got it in terms of, I didn't see it in there. You look here at Oklahoma, same thing. No reporting of the tries. Yeah, this is all NAPLEX and MPJE. And then Arkansas did report the number, but again, it doesn't report a percentage, like, well, how many tried and how many got it. But Washington State does. So of the class of 2019, approximately 30% of our graduates went on to a fellowship or residency. This represents 51% of those graduates who sought them. So if you've got a graduating class of around, I don't want to do around, let's do exact numbers. I want to say it was 145. Yeah. So 145. And 82 is, I wish it was a nice even number. It's not quite half. It's a little over half tried for residency. And so 30% overall went. And the average is 24, if you want to know, across the country. So seeing Rutgers at 16% residency is a little bit lower than most schools. It's usually 24, but they have a really high fellowship number. And that makes sense because a lot of industry is in Jersey. This is incredibly high at Ohio State, that 39% of the class got residency. That is way above the 24% average. Oklahoma at 10% is a little bit below the average of 24%. Arkansas, I have to do the math. So 28 out of 110, it's probably around 26. So 26%, just a little bit above the average residency. And then this 30% is above the average. And this started with 38%, and then these classes didn't really go for residency, and then this class did. Okay, so let's go back to the original page, and now you can find your College of Pharmacy and where they are. And they're alphabetical in the same way they are in the FarmCast, so that it's identical in name to the FarmCast. So if it said the University of Oklahoma in the FarmCast, it's the University of Oklahoma here. Okay? But what we can do is we can look at something like, we can just look at, maybe, what do I know? I know Butler. So I know them because I know pharmacists that are there. So here we have a little bit of a different breakdown, and it says 51% are employed, 29% are fellowship and residency, and you need to add these, and then 18% in grad school, which is a really high number going to grad school, and then 2% are still looking. So you're looking at 98% placement, and this 29%, because there's no breakdown, I can't say, well, are they more in community or are they not? Let's see if we can find another one. Creighton, it's nearby, so I sort of know this one. This one has an accordion that you have to kind of open up, and I should have done this ahead of time. Okay, there. And so you have to open up the accordion down here, where it has graduation rates, pass rates, and so forth. And again, this data is for 2018. but it says 59% within the profession, 1.8 outside, completing residency 17, unemployed 5, lost to follow-up 16, which is really high. So this, though, doesn't say when they asked them. So was it at graduation? Was it 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? 6 months is the default, or I guess, I don't know, I mean, in terms of what I've read over the 140 that I read. But this is what we're looking at from last year. But I don't think those numbers are any good anymore. I think you have to look at 2019. So anyway, so kind of the take home is that residencies are in much greater percentage than community opportunities, and that if you are in your P3 year, these 5 schools have done you the biggest favor they possibly could, which is to say that the percentage of students at graduation that are in residency in general will exceed community. And I would expect that's for the foreseeable future. So again, any questions, just comment below or email me, aaguerra@dmac.edu.